The Gospels are not eyewitness accounts, and they weren't written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And that's a good thing. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So the earliest reference we have to the gospel accounts are people calling them like the memoirs of the disciples. They're not attributing any sort of specific authorship to them. And that's important because people didn't seem bothered by that. The other thing that we have is that the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that appear in the Bible don't ever, in the text itself, say, hey, this was written by Matthew or Mark or Luke and John. The closest we have is the book of John saying that it was written by the beloved disciple, but that's problematic because right after that it says, and we know that his stories are true. So it's really a group of people that seem to be writing from some sort of account that was attributed to John. Okay, there was this guy, Papias of Hierapolis, that probably somebody's going to mention in the comments, that in the early 2nd century say that Matthew and Mark actually wrote Gospels, but Papias of Hierapolis says that those were sayings Gospels, like books of quotes of Jesus. Also, it's just fun to say Papias of Hierapolis. Another interesting piece of data is that Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they're often called the synoptic Gospels because they seem to draw on each other, and in fact, a third source of text that's often called the Q source. And that seems to indicate that these aren't all first-hand accounts. But I said this was a good thing. Right? It's a common thing actually in ancient texts to attribute them to some specific author. And there's different reasons that people do that. A lot of times it is because they want you to sort of see this text through the eyes of that person and sort of their values and their stories, sort of being informed by their life. And that's kind of what's happening here for sure. The idea that these actually are from the disciples, and that's an important feature. But the fact that they are not eyewitness accounts and that they were not written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John is actually helpful. It's helpful because you don't have to worry about the details. The fact that they contradict each other, the fact that the Sermon on the Mount is on a mount in one version and on a valley in another version. That doesn't matter because that's not what's happening with these texts. They're not trying to get every single detail right. Because what this is a collection of writings of an early movement, an early religious movement that is forming, that is trying to define who the leader was, what were his teachings, what did Jesus value, and as a way of saying, this is what we should be about, this is what we should value, this is what we should do. When you're looking at these things, that's what you're reading. Are some of these things that Jesus actually said? Absolutely, 100%. But the details and the kind of minor discrepancies between them are ultimately not important because you're taking the Bible seriously, not literally. You're trying to find the deeper meaning and values that the text contains, that is sort of this early community saying, this is who Jesus was, this is what he valued, and this is what we need to value as well. Oh yeah, and of course, I'm not a biblical scholar, but if you want somebody who really dives deep into all the details of this, Dan McClellan has a bunch of fantastic videos on it.